Okay. Technical issues. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. This is J.R. Moore coming to you live from deep in the mountains of the Missouri Ozarks on Friday, the 6th day of April, year of our Lord 2018. Welcome to the John Moore Show. Breaking news. It's not headlines on Drudge, but it should be. There's about 3,000 military-age Muslims in Gaza marching towards the Israeli border as we speak. The Israeli military is prepared to meet and defeat this threat. And that's breaking news. Prep for the day. I want to encourage all of you to understand, learn, and educate yourself about electromagnetic pulse, EMP, coronal mass ejections, and prepare to deal with the consequences of electromagnetic pulse attack and coronal mass ejection events. I think you would be well advised to do so. We have a patient waiting in the green room, my friend Tom Berryhill. Tom is a gentleman who began a quest more than half a century ago to become quite knowledgeable in the area of expertise called ham radio, which he did. Tom has been a ham radio operator for more than half a century. He has made a living in technology, the various aspects of technology. And we're going to talk about this morning emergency survival communications. If you've got a question or comment about emergency survival communications, give us a call at 800-313-9443. Tom, before I forget, I need energy cleaners, and you and I can talk when the show's over about how to accomplish that, but my Easter sale sold me out, and I need a fresh batch. Good morning, Tom.
Hi, John. Good morning, and we'll take care of that order. No problem there.
Okay, thank you. This is radio. We have new listeners every show. We have new people every show who have not heard our previous discussions. So for you regular listeners out there, it will be review. For you new listeners, well, it will be a new page turning over. Tom, when I was in Dallas 2 weeks ago, it'll be 3 weeks ago this coming weekend, I handed out, about 400 to 500 business cards. And there was 320 people at the luncheon where I was the keynote speaker there in Dallas, and everybody there got one of my business cards and a sheet with my website address on there. So I know we have new listeners, and that's just true every week. This week may be more so than some others because of my Dallas event. So Tom, I'm going to begin with a summary of what these two concerns are, and if you have anything to add once I give my summary, you can jump right in there and add your whatever you want to add. First, we'll go to the natural event. The scientists call it coronal mass ejections, CME for short, Charlie Mike Echo. These events happen on a regular basis. Small ones happen all the time. Big ones happen every few years. The biggest one we're aware of that hit planet Earth was in 1859. It has a name. It's called the Carrington event, named after the scientist who figured out what this thing was. And North America did take a direct hit during that event. And we had no power grid, nationwide power grid at the time. Electricity was pretty much restricted to experimental stages and universities and laboratories and places like that on one hand. On the other, we did have a very extensive telegraph system east of the Mississippi River in 1859. Those wires acted as antennas to collect that energy, directing that energy from the sun into the telegraph offices that started fires in the telegraph offices. The barbed wire fencing crossing the fields acted as antennas to collect that energy and start fires in the fields. When these events happen, they have enough power to possibly go all the way around the planet, which EMP can't do. EMP is strictly line of sight. So they can be very powerful. In 2012, quite powerful CME just barely missed planet Earth. The scientists and engineers believe that if a similar Carrington event that happened in 1859, if it was to happen in our modern day world, it would take out the power grid of at least half the planet and possibly the entire planet. That's how powerful these things are. So that's the natural one, and it is inevitable it's unavoidable that eventually a powerful one will hit planet Earth. Now let's move on to the man-made one, electromagnetic pulse. The phenomenon was first observed in the early 1960s when we were setting off a lot of nuclear weapons in testing, mostly for the United States and South Pacific. I started noticing interruptions and problems with electronic equipment. We now know that electromagnetic pulse is a very serious weapon in and of itself, separate from the effects of what we normally think of atomic blast, which would be the destruction from the blast itself, the overpressure, and of course the radiation. If a nuclear device is set off in space, 50 miles above ground, 100 miles above ground, in the daytime there would be nothing to see. There would be no sound because there's no sound in space. There would be no radiation in the form of nuclear radiation. What there would be an instantaneous microsecond burst of energy that would knock out line of sight, anything line of sight with that nuclear device that has a transistor, resistor, diode in it. Modern electronics cannot handle that burst of energy and would be rendered useless. Consequently, anything underneath it, including the power grid, radios, televisions, automobiles, motorcycles, trucks, airplanes, would be rendered useless instantly. Modern trucks, modern cars, modern automobiles, modern aircraft. It was about the early 1970s, around 1972, that the transition began from no electronics in vehicles to electronic ignition, which has continued to the point now where modern vehicles have electronics left to right, top to bottom, for pretty much every system in the vehicle. Possible exception may be the parking brake. Almost everything has electronics in it. And the U.S. government officials who have looked into the consequences of EMP if one was to hit the lower 48 and all three power grids. U.S. lower 48 has three power grids: East Mississippi, West Mississippi, and Texas. If the nationwide power grid was taken down, that at the end of 1 year, 9 out of 10 Americans would be deceased for the following reasons: starvation, bad lack of drinking water, lack of medication, and any kind of medical attention at all, and of course criminal violence. So Tom, that's my quick summary. Do you have anything to add to that, sir?
Well, John, I really can't disagree with any of it. I think you've laid it all out, and that's what we have to take into consideration when setting up for preparedness issues and so on. The reason the telegraph offices way back in the 1800s when that happened were damaged was because of the length of the lines, and of course our power grid would be subjected to the same types of voltages and pulses, and there's such a capture area there. You know, the lines are miles and miles long, so it gives it an opportunity to pick up a huge amount of that energy that's been transmitted by this blast, whether it be man-made or from the sun, and that's what causes the damage. Now, I really think that perhaps with automobiles, motor vehicles, there may be a better chance of some of these control systems in the cars and trucks surviving. It could cause a hiccup to where they may have trouble running until turned off and started again. It's possible, though, that many of those vehicles will survive that, John, mainly because there's not miles and miles of wire hanging on them to pick up a lot of that radiated energy. Also, what many people fail to take into consideration when preparing for an EMP is that some magnetic shielding is also required, and it's the magnetic component of that energy blast that would cause a lot of the damage. When you have current flow, that's when some real serious problems can happen. Now, shielding for the voltage the static pulse, the electrostatic pulse of voltage, needs to be taken care of. The magnetic shielding is equally or more important. So I would suggest everybody take that into consideration. In my case, I actually built a frame. Everybody talks about Faraday cages and this and that, but I actually built a metal box that will contain equipment, and it's in turn sets inside of another metal box. So there's two layers of shielding, and the bonding for ground is in one corner. It's a rectangular case, and in one corner, the inner box is connected to the outer box, and in turn goes to a ground rod, a single ground rod. And that, when you have a single point to drain off this energy, you don't set up multiple paths of current flow. If you grounded that box in two locations, you could possibly allow for current flow in the metal itself. Now, you're going to have some if a pulse happens, but multiple grounding will allow what's called ground loops, and that's how many problems could occur from the current flowing between the actual ground rods. So.
Right. Well, I personally own 3 vehicles that are EMP proof. A 1959 Ford school bus, a 1975, I believe it is, International Scout, which has been retrofitted with 1973 ignition, and my 1988 Dodge van, which I had a professional mechanic retrofit to be EMP resistant. And for many of these older vehicles, maybe, and I know these hillbilly mechanics, a 350 Chevy engine, for example, a newer one would accept the distributor from an older one. So they may have a Chevy pickup truck, for example, that would be in excellent condition that won't run because of electronic ignition. It would be simply a matter of finding a distributor from an older Chevrolet 350 to install in that vehicle and make it run. There may some of the things like electric windows and things may not work, but who cares if your windows don't work, as long as you got a motor vehicle that runs. Tom, we got a couple of callers on hold here. First, we have Tim Spencer, my friend Tim Spencer, my co-host. Good morning, Tim.
Hey, good morning, guys. How you doing today?
Good. What's on your mind, sir?
Well, we were talking about EMPs and the barbed wire fences starting fires and all. I just wanted to relate to folks what I did to solve the fire problem in case we had an EMP. I drove an 8-foot ground rod, probably 7.5 feet into the ground, and I used a copper connection both on the barbed wire fence and the ground wire, hooked them together with 6-gauge stranded wire, and therefore I am thinking that would lessen the possibility of fire. I was kind of curious what Tom's thought is on that.
Well, Tim, I couldn't hear everything you were saying. It was a little bit muffled, but I think you're describing an electric fence with the barbed wire grounded. Is that correct?
Well, what I'm doing is taking my regular barbed wire fence and grounding it. And I was curious what you thought of that idea. I mean, that's what I've done. I did it, probably 15 years ago.
Yeah, I don't think that's a bad idea at all. I'll tell you what, if you had that barbed wire fence close to any high voltage power lines and it wasn't grounded, and you were standing there and your shoes were damp and you touched that barbed wire, I'm willing to bet you'd get a shock off of it. And I can tell a quick story about one time my dad he was a building contractor. He built a large industrial building, and he talked me into helping him with some of the roofing, and there was a wooden ladder up against the roof of this building, and there were some high voltage lines nearby, not close, several hundred feet away. And we got there early in the morning and put that wooden ladder, laid it up against that roof, and the roof had dew on it, and it was rather. Let me tell you, I got up on that ladder, and that ladder was kind of damp, and it wasn't quite touching the roof. When I touched those damp and frost-covered roof shingles, I just about got blown off of that ladder. And those high voltage. Now these were very high voltage lines, but they were at least probably 200 or 300 feet away, and it still induced enough voltage into that to give quite a shock.
My sense, Tom, almost a quarter of a mile of it goes within 10 feet of 14,000 volt wires, and that's actually what made me grounded. Because of exactly what you're saying. I leaned up against it one day when I was out back, and I got quite an awakening. Believe me, I was wide awake when once that happened.
Right.
Now,
so
probably
that's why I did what I did.
Yeah, the best place I would think the best place to put that ground rod is where it's closest to those lines. Now, there are stories about farmers tapping into their fences and picking up enough voltage to run light bulbs and things like that. I guess that could be done. But I will say
yes, it can be. I'll tell you from experience, the fluorescent lights in my chicken house are run exactly that way. I'm probably going to get myself in trouble for saying that, but that's how I light my chicken house.
Well, it's not the most stable voltage. It's not the best way to do it because as the dew gets on those fence posts, especially if some of them are wooden, it will drain off some of that voltage in the morning. There's a better way to do it. We'll talk about that after the break.
Okay, we have a break coming up. We got a caller on hold, and I don't hear any music. There it is. We'll be right back. We'll be right back. Ladies and gentlemen, J.R. Moore here. It's taken 3 years before I could offer the inter-shelter domes for sale. During those 3 years, several different governments and militaries were taking all their production. The inter-shelter dome homes may be just what you've been looking for to provide affordable, energy-efficient, permanent, and attractive housing. These dome homes are prefabricated units that can be assembled in a few hours by 2 men with a ladder and simple hand tools. Check out the photos of these dome homes built in the Arctic, on tropical beaches, in suburban areas, and in forests. All the details, many photographs, and the pricing of the dome homes are listed on the left-hand side of my homepage at thelibertyman.com. I think you'll find these homes are not only attractive, but they're energy efficient, and a bonus. You can disassemble them and reassemble them as many times as you feel you need to. Pretty great, huh? Something that's very, very unique. Check them out at my website at thelibertyman.com. We are back, ladies and gentlemen. We're back. J.R. Moore here on Friday, the 6th day of April. We're talking to Tom Berryhill and my friend Tim Spencer. We're talking about EMP and related matters. And just before the break, the topic of free energy was being discussed. Tim, you can't get in any trouble for what you're doing. It's there. If you don't use it, it just gets wasted into wherever free electricity goes. So I wouldn't worry about that, Tim, at all.
I installed what's called an on-on switch. In other words, I can draw my power from the fence and using LED bulbs, or I can draw it from the regular power supply from REA. I can do either. And some days it makes more sense, if I go out there to the chicken house, to flip that switch and, draw regular current. But either way works, and I attribute that to using the LED, which works from about 50 volts up to 130, 140. And that really works well for me.
Tom, in your opinion, could 10 be recharging batteries with that system?
Well, that's exactly where I wanted to go with this discussion, is if you took, you might have to use a resistor as well, but a capacitor, when used at power line frequency 60 hertz, a capacitor can act as a resistor and also isolation at the same time. So you would you'd have to experiment with this, but you'd take a large capacitor like that's used in air conditioners, the motor start,
right,
run type capacitors, and you would connect that to the fence, and then maybe have a dropping resistor. You might have to drop it a little bit more. You'd have to use some common sense here with the circuits. Make sure you don't get shocked or anything, but you could drop that voltage then, and maybe even use a series of capacitors and set it up as a voltage dropping circuit, as they will act like a resistor at AC frequencies. And then you could tap off of there at the appropriate point and get enough voltage and current to charge a bank of batteries. And now, when you're talking about LED bulbs, many of those operate over a large voltage range because they have a switch. They have a switching power supply in there that takes the high voltage and drops it down to just a few volts. Those white LEDs only operate at about 3.2 volts, and then they hook them up in series and parallel. But they have to take the 120 or 240 and drop it down into that range, and they use that switching power supply to do it. Now, if you take that into consideration, many of these switching power supply type lamps will operate from about 80 volts or 85 volts all the way up to, I believe it's around 265 or somewhere in that range. So that's quite and that works perfectly for this type of system.
Well, that's what I've done. I've taken the regular Walmart LED bulbs, and I put them, in the overhead light lamp, and it's worked perfectly so far, Tom.
Yeah, see, as the load changes, the more lamps you put on there, in theory, they would get dimmer because you're dropping that voltage, and you'd have less voltage, and current. Everything would vary with the load on that fence. That fence picking up that stray voltage off those overhead lines just doesn't have enough. It can't source enough current to run an indefinite amount of those bulbs. So at some point you'll put enough of a load on there to actually, it'll be the same thing as grounding the fence. But if you use that to charge the batteries, then the batteries would almost be like a voltage regulator. You would be running off the batteries and only using a fence to charge those batteries. So that power is going to be there 24/7. And then the battery...
That's something I need to think about. Okay.
Yeah. The battery would... but then you'd have to run that to an inverter. A way around all of that is to just get the... Now, I've done this with defective... I have some of these LED bulbs that went bad. I cut them open and take out that electronic circuitry and just wire right into the string of LEDs that are in there and just connect right into it. And you can turn that into a DC powered lamp that could be used in a car, truck. There's all kinds of ways to do that.
Oh, cool.
Oh, yeah. And then you could run off the batteries and not worry about inverters or anything else, and just basically charge the batteries and use the DC current from the batteries to run those lamps. And then you just, And like John said, I don't think you could get in any kind of trouble. I believe there was some lawsuits about that in the past, if I'm not mistaken, where farmers did get into some lawsuits with power utilities over that very issue. I think it all got thrown out.
All right.
Of course
well, guys, I'm going to let you go. You got a
Okay.
break, and you got a caller waiting. So I'll talk to you later. And thank you,
Okay,
Tom.
thank you, Tim.
Give me a call
Appreciate the
later
call.
today.
We got a bottom of the hour break. We'll be right back. Stay tuned.
You are tuned in to the Republic Broadcasting Network. Visit our website by going to republicbroadcasting.org.
Ladies and gentlemen, J.R. Moore here. We're continuing our energy cleaner promotion, which began August of 2016. In this promotion, you get to buy an energy cleaner, $70 off retail, and a mattress pad, 10% off retail. $200 of the purchase price of the energy cleaner goes to Republic Broadcasting. This is a great way to help get energy cleaners out to people who need them and have some financial issues to deal with. And, of course, a great way to support Republic Broadcasting. Here's what you do. Send in a postcard. My address is John Moore, P.O. Box 201, Davidsville, Missouri. We pick a postcard every 2 weeks. If your postcard is drawn, you get the chance to buy the energy cleaner, $70 off retail, and 10% off the mattress pads. Put your name and your address, your telephone number, and your email address on the postcard, and we wish you the best of luck. Thank you. All right, we are back, ladies and gentlemen. We're back. J.R. Moore here on Friday, the 6th day of April. My website is thelibertyman.com. That's thelibertyman.com. With our conversation this morning, there's something you need to see at my website. It's the EMP Commission report. This is the report issued by the scientists and engineers appointed by the federal government to look into what EMP can and what it cannot do, with a major caveat, that being they did not have the authority or the money to fully test modern motor vehicles, cars, trucks, against a full-strength EMP pulse. So they didn't do that. The weakened reduced pulses that they were tested against didn't do too bad with these modern vehicles. Also, my website, of course, are energy cleaners. This is my home business. When you place your order, I'm the guy that packs them up, the energy cleaners and the fitted mattress pads. I take them to the little country post office at Cherryville, Missouri, where this evening you can get an all-you-can-eat catfish buffet with side dishes and beverage for less than $8, and I ship them to you priority mail. The energy cleaner helps you with pain mitigation. It could be arthritis pain. Almost everybody with arthritis pain gets relief. Joint pain, back pain, doesn't matter the source of the pain. You'll probably get relief. Not getting a great night's sleep, you probably get relief there also. Keep in mind, I offer from me to you personally a 90-day money-back guarantee, so you're risking nothing when you buy your energy cleaner. Check out the details at my website at thelibertyman.com. You can place your order right there at my website using PayPal. PayPal is a lot of fun, by the way. It is, in fact, the most secure way to make any payment online. MasterCard, Visa. You can send me a check or money order. My address is there at my website at thelibertyman.com. Plus, I have a toll-free order line 24 hours a day. Here it is, 800-592-9543. I say again, 800-592-9543. Visiting with Tom Berryhill, we're talking about the consequences of electromagnetic pulse. And our next caller is dropped off. I mean, he's gone, so we forget about the next caller. Tom, let's talk about this free energy is something that probably most people aren't aware of. Wouldn't that be a fair statement, sir?
Oh, I would think so. And of course, there's been all types of discussion about free electricity ever since it was discovered. John,
right.
I thought a little
and along those. Go ahead.
Well, I just wanted to, real quick, if anybody that's considering what Tim Spencer has done, during the break I gave this a little bit of thought, and a battery charging scheme could easily be set up by maybe using a large value electrolytic capacitor, like a motor running capacitor of 200 microfarad, something like that, and put that onto the fence. There's no polarity on there, so you just connect one wire to the fence. The other wire then could go to possibly a drop-in resistor. I don't even know if that would be necessary, but the other side of the capacitor could feed a series of diodes. If you had some large value silicon diodes, each one of those diodes will drop the voltage by about 0.6 of a volt. And if you put those in series, you could have tap points, and you could make adjustments in 0.6 volt increments and set up the charge current for that battery. Now, as a precaution, I would get what's called a Zener diode and put that in parallel with the battery to ground, from negative to positive, and that keeps, maybe make that about maybe 14.5 volts or so, just to keep the battery from overcharging, and that would shunt off any excess energy. And then, of course, the negative side of the battery could then go to a ground rod, and that would pick up that energy and keep the battery charged, and you could just tap right off the battery with the circuits. And to explain it in simple terms, it'd be like a bucket of water that has just a drip, little drops of water going in. It always fills that bucket up until the bucket overflows. If you need a lot of water out of the bucket, you can take half the bucket instantaneously and use that water, and then the bucket just keeps filling back up again from that trickle of water going into it. Well, this battery would be the same way. That energy picked up off the barbed wire fence would continuously charge that battery. Just give it a little bit of a trickle. Not enough to run a whole lot, but enough to charge that battery. And the battery, for short periods of time, can source huge amounts of current, enough to start a car or truck. And then that loads the battery down, uses up a lot of its stored energy, voltage and current power that's stored in that battery, but then that trickle coming in off that fence will just build it back up again. Just like that bucket of water could be filled up again from that trickle. You wouldn't get much out of that trickle of water by itself, but when you fill up a bucket, which would be like the battery filling up off the fence, same principle. You use what you need and then let it charge back up again.
Now, that said, Tom, I think it's a fair statement that 9 out of 10 people listening to you talk about what you're talking about, you may as well be talking in ancient Egyptian language as far as they're concerned. They don't have a clue what you're talking about when it comes to resistors and diodes and related matters.
Well, John, you'd be surprised how many...
Tom, wait. I'm trying to make a point here. Ladies and gentlemen, this is why you need to become affiliated with your local ham radio club, because there's men and women with your local ham radio club who will understand what Tom is talking about and can help you set up your own system to accomplish your own goals. Go ahead, Tom.
Yeah, exactly. And it's really, the circuit I described is very simple. I'm sure we're not going to educate everybody in this short period of time we have today on how to do this, but I gave some food for thought to some of those that are knowledgeable in electronics, and they could take those ideas and put together a working system very quickly.
Absolutely. And before we get to our caller who's back on hold here, I want to mention earth batteries. I've mentioned this to some homeschoolers, and it's a great project for boys and girls anywhere from 8 to 16 years old or so. Earth batteries, we all do Google searches, right, or Wikipedia. They've been around since the 1840s, earth batteries, where you take electricity right out of the ground and can make use of it. In fact, Tim Spencer was a witness to a U.S. Army experiment where they had earth batteries set up running electrical equipment in the tent right next to the earth batteries. And I'll give a quick explanation of what an earth battery is. First, you need moist ground. It can't be dry. Moist ground. And you take metal rods. They have to be dissimilar. So one rod could be aluminum, one copper, one steel, one aluminum. As long as they're two different kinds of metal, You drive those rods into the ground on a north-south axis, and then you connect the two of them with a wire. And when the two wires meet, you get electricity. That's a real simple explanation. The farther apart the rods are, by the way, the more electricity you get. I'm not sure at what point it's diminishing returns, but that's simple principles there. Our caller on hold here is Rick in Missouri. Good morning, Rick.
John, good morning, Tom. I think it is absolutely, by the way, if you're lucky enough to have a soggy area in your yard, a low spot, or off terrain from a septic tank, that's just going to be another thing you can do with that. It is fortuitous or serendipitous that you're talking about this subject this morning, because it's been on my mind since earlier in the week when we discussed solar panels and what would happen to them in an EMP, and it occurred to me that most of these controllers that are typically provided with a solar panel kit will have a set of posts on it where you can take the DC straight off the panel before it's inverted into AC. So, usually these controllers, you've got a couple choices. And what I wanted to mention here, it occurred to me after we talked that even if we have an EMP right after the show, you better let Doc Myers do his show first. But even if it fried my controller, I would still be able to get, I think these panels are 12 volts. You hook them together in the series, and then you've got 24 volts. And if you've got 4 panels, you'll hook 2 and 2 and then put them in a parallel, and you'd have and this is where things get a little shaky for me, is with it's 24 volts, but I think you'd be changing the amps, and this is kind of what I wanted to ask. I wanted to see if either one of you guys knew what the deal was. You can, obviously LED, 24-volt LED, that's a pretty amicable appliance, and it's not a difficult thing to get those going. However, if you're lucky enough, or if you've thought about this and you bought yourself 24 volts, let's say a refrigerator, now typically these are for RVs, motorhomes, that kind of thing. There are a lot of 24-volt appliances that people don't know. You can get a refrigerator or a freezer or ceiling fans or a lot of things off RVs are wonderful things for this application. But, Tom, I guess what I wanted to say was a lot of times, these things are going to have compressors. Compressors can be very finicky about amps and things like that. So what would happen if you were running straight off of your solar panels? Let's say your controller's gone, and you're trying to run these different appliances. What would happen to you?
Well, you'd have a very difficult time starting any type of inductive load, like a motor or a compressor.
Yeah.
A compressor is basically a motor.
Yeah.
And what happens, you see, when a motor has to start, the starting current's about 5 to 7 times the running current. So if it takes 1 amp to run a small motor, it might take 5 to 7 amps for a half second or so just to get it up to speed. There's just no good way around that unless you have some other mechanical method. I can give you an example. I have a drill press that has a bad capacitor in it that helps to start the motor. And if I turn that drill press on, it just sits there and groans. And if I left it on long enough, it'd probably pop the circuit breaker because it never started. It's drawing a lot of current. I have to give the chuck on that thing a spin real quick. Just grab it, give it a twirl, and it takes off. I've got to change that capacitor, but I just haven't gotten around to it.
That's a very common problem for air conditioners. A lot of times the capacitor goes, and this is exactly what you get.
Yeah, and they actually have hard starting compressor kits for air conditioners. If your air conditioner won't start running, you can buy. And all it is basically a capacitor that gives some extra capacitance to boost the current when it first starts up. And then there's a thing called a potential relay that drops out once it comes up to speed, and that starting capacitor is switched out of the circuit and ready for the next time it has to start again. But that's what you'd be fighting, Rick, on with solar panels.
Okay.
Solar panels by themselves unless you had a huge system, your biggest problems would be starting motors, and of course the way around it is like a similar system that we talked about with batteries on Tim Spencer's electric fence. John, we should take up a collection to get bail money to get Tim out of jail when they come for him for stealing all that power.
That's a fantasy. You know, the power grid, the engineers who work for these power companies, they know what we're talking about, and they do what they can to preserve the power that they're generating and get it to the meters where they can charge money for it, and whatever's lost is lost. Whatever Tim Spencer's making. Whatever Tim Spencer's making use of is wasted energy anyway, so they're not really losing anything.
John. There's tremendous losses on a power grid, and they take that into account, and they use all types of capacitors and to correct the power factor and everything else. You'll see these on the poles as you drive by. You'll see the transformers, but then you'll see these banks of capacitors that are square, and they have large insulators on top, and they have combinations of these systems to help out with all of this. And so there are losses, and they know that. So it's going to go to waste. Yeah, I'm just kidding around with that. I don't think they'd ever mess with Tim because he's only doing what a lot of other people do, and it's not a bad idea, really.
No, not at all. It's a smart idea, is what it is. Rick, anything else?
With Rick's solar panel array, unless you had quite a few solar panels, you have to be able to source enough current to get that motor started. That's going to be the hardest thing to do. But if you charge up the batteries, like described earlier, and then you take that heavy starting current out of those batteries, it doesn't affect the solar panel. Doesn't care. It just keeps trickling energy back into that battery to bring it back to where it needs to be, and then you take large amounts here and there as needed. It's a pretty foolproof system.
Well, I've got 4 of those big Trojan batteries. That's not a problem. But really, for practical application, then we're really looking at probably just lighting. You'd be able to light them easily if you had.
Rick, I want to recommend, if you don't have them already, to get Pulse Tech devices for your Trojan batteries.
You and I went over that, and I've got those. I've got that on my batteries.
Well, they'll pretty much double the life of those. Those Trojan batteries are incredibly expensive, aren't they?
$1,000 for 4. Yeah.
Right, and that's not going to power a house. To power a house, you'd be looking at probably $10,000 to $15,000 to power a house in a normal sense of the word, wouldn't you?
Oh, I tell you what, I wish somebody would die and leave me some of those nickel iron batteries. That'd be great.
I haven't talked to the guys that manufacture them. First of all, the Edison iron batteries are not genuine nickel iron batteries, because it's just nickel plated iron is all it is. It's not an alloy. That's why they offer a 10-year warranty, because around 11 to 12 years the nickel starts flaking off. You don't want to buy the Edison iron batteries. You really, really don't. The Zapworks batteries are not back in production. Hopefully they will be, but we don't have a target date. That's the weak link in all these alternative power methods, is the batteries. For the reason I just stated, to power a house, a normal American 2,000 square foot house, would be about $15,000 to $20,000 worth of lead acid batteries. Here's our break. Stay tuned. We'll be right back. Okay, we are back, ladies and gentlemen. We're back. J.R. Moore here on Friday the 6th of April. One brief follow-up here on these lead batteries, these lead acid batteries. batteries. Um, that's the weak link is because these batteries, the ones that Rick talks about, the Trojan batteries, those are industrial batteries. The same type used in forklifts are incredibly powerful, incredibly heavy and big, and incredibly expensive. They're excellent lead acid batteries on one hand. On the other, properly maintained, they will last about 10 years. If you have the pulse check devices like Rick has, I think he may expect to get 15 plus years out of them, properly maintained. Most people, most of the time, can't afford to spend $15,000 to $20,000 replacing a bank of batteries every 10, 12, 15 years. They simply can't do that. That's the weak link. Hello, Tom.
Yeah, John, you're
Tom
cutting
there?
out. So, yeah, I'm hearing you, but you may be cutting out. Yes, that's the weak link, these lead-acid batteries. Replacing those is very expensive. I have a very small solar system here that I use only to power some ham radio equipment. I have two deep cycle 12-volt battery. I think they're PowerSonic is the brand, if I remember right. I can't see them from where I'm sitting. But they were used in UPS, which is an uninterruptible power supply system that was used for telephone sites, cellular phone sites for the base station. Yeah. And it's a very nice set of batteries. And I use some small solar panels to trickle charge those. And then I also have a charger that plugs into the wall and just uses regular house current to keep those charged if needed. Or I can charge them from a small generator just to keep that equipment running. And it's a very, very good way to power your ham equipment or any other type of critical equipment that you have that needs to stay running. So I work all of my radio equipment off of 12 volts that way. It works great.
Right. My surveillance vehicle that I built in 1990, I had a backup power system completely separate from the motor vehicle with a deep cycle 12-volt battery to run radios and fans and lights and things like that. That was that I could isolate from the main battery and then keep charged up when the vehicle was running. It was a great system that worked perfectly for me. But once again, ladies and gentlemen, for all of you listening out there, if you want to gain access to this knowledge, find your local ham radio club, and you'll find men and women who this is not a mystery to. That what Tom and I are talking about, and Rick, this is not a mystery. This is simply how they live their lives. And to tap into this information, you need to become part of the ham radio community. Right, Tom?
That's correct. There's all types of knowledge, and those men and women that are members of those clubs, they're willing to share that. Just go to their meeting. You don't have to be a licensed ham operator. Just express an interest, and you'll be welcome. And you can take it from there. They'll help you get started.
Absolutely. Tom, let's talk privately before the day is over. Appreciate the call. Thank you, sir.
Thanks, John.
Okay. Top of the hour break. Back to Dr. Myers. Stay tuned. On the 6th day of April. The breaking news continues to be that 3,000 military-aged Muslims walking towards the border in the area called Gaza. This could end up being a very serious matter before the day is over. It's mid-afternoon over there in Israel right now. Perfect tip of the day, I want to encourage people to understand, educate, inform themselves about electromagnetic pulse, EMP attacks, and prepare to deal with the consequences of EMP attacks. I think they would be very wise. We have a patient waiting in the green room, my friend Dr. Phil Myers, D.C. Dr. Myers is a chiropractic physician. He's my chiropractic physician, my primary care physician, living and working in my hometown, St. Louis, Missouri. It's real easy to get started with Dr. Myers. All you need to do is call his office, set up that first private, no-charge consultation. That office telephone number is area code 314-878-6868. Good morning, doctor.
Good morning, John. How are you this
Dr.
morning?
Myers.
Are you hearing me?
Dr. Myers, are you there?
Yeah, you sound like you're not coming through that well.
Really good. Really good, sir. Okay, well, hopefully by next Wednesday I'll have a much stronger internet connection and things will go a little bit better on my end. Well, something I get a lot emails and telephone calls about, Doctor, is people look forward to our health tip of the week every week. And what would that be this week, sir? Okay. Why am I not hearing anything here?
Hey, John, you there?
Dr. Myers, are you back
Yep,
with us?
I'm here.
Okay. Are you on a
I am
landline,
here.
sir? Are you on a
Yep,
landline?
I'm on a landline.
Okay. I don't know what the situation is. Regardless, people look forward to hearing what the health tip of the week is every week, and what would that be this week, sir?
So, I mean, can we hear me right now? Am I good to go?
I believe so. We'll move forward. Right.
Okay, this is good. Hey, technical difficulties, live radio, right?
Right.
So,
right.
Okay, sounds like we just have a delay. That's all. Okay, so basically, we've been having a really good time with the health tip of the week, and it'd be really cool to, again, hear what people are experiencing. So any phone calls today would be great. Give us a call here at the studio. John, can you put that number out again?
That's 800-313-9443.
Yeah, so, yeah, anybody that's been experimenting with the different tips and what you've been experiencing, because if you've been doing the work, there's some great things that are happening for you guys. There's trials and tribulations that you're dealing with, and the more you can share what your successes are and also what your trials are, what shows up for you. Basically, I like to see that these are opportunities for us to transcend or transform whatever's going on. So whatever those are, and you want to talk about those, please give us a call so we can make this more of your show than anything else. Because that's the most important part is people doing this work. We're in such a unique position in our history right now. Is we're getting into a place where there is a lot of angst, there's a lot of fear, there's a lot of anxiety going over what's happening with our food, our money, our banking, our governments, our ecosystem, and there's a lot of stuff happening. And right now we're about to see history repeat itself, possibly in a negative way, but this is one of the biggest opportunities that we as a consciousness population of people that don't want the war, people that don't want agriculture ruining our food anymore, people that don't want centralized systems controlling our thoughts on TV, on radio, on broadcast networks, in advertisement of our food, of our medicine, of what we're supposed to believe about ourselves, that you're not divine, that you're not omnipotent, that you're not able to heal your own body. But we as a collective are starting to see that, wow, that's so not true. And even the people that really are, basically, they're just in the system, and they don't know that the system is the system, and they don't know that they're in a system. Even everybody like that, in some way, shape, or form, is getting these sensations of intuition, of knowledge, of like, wow, that was really cool that happened, and but to realize that you have the power to do all this, it's your ability. And the thing is, the population is catching up. and this is one of our first times in history in a long, long, long time that it's this population that actually is in the places of government, in the places of military, in the places of higher corporations that want to see the change happen as well. They no longer want to see the way it's been, especially since the 1940s and 1950s for sure. And they want to see all that start disappearing as well. And so this is your opportunity and my opportunity to really take heed. And here's the cool part. Even though I, at this moment, can't stop the chemtrails from going across the sky, I can't stop Monsanto from making that seed deal to the farmer back over in Punxsutawney, wherever, and stop them from putting that weed into the food. I can't stop that. But I can do a lot of things now that I'm awake and I'm aware and I have knowledge of what is actually going on. I can change the way I eat. I can change the way I move. I can change the way I think. And so by doing those three things, and that's the stuff that I focus on within my practice and I focus on with all my clients, is, yeah, we're living in a toxic dump. How good is your body able to handle that toxic dump? And right now, how good is it to be able to get rid of that toxic dump that's in you as we start eliminating it from your life? And that's the thing. It's like, for example, I can't stop the chemtrails, so I am going to be overshadowed with raindrops of aluminum. It's just a fact. However, I can make sure that my body has an affinity for hormonal vitality and not for the attraction of heavy metals. And so that my liver works amazingly well, so that my antioxidant levels in my liver neutralize those said aluminum heavy metals from my body, and I no longer pay the major consequences. Maybe a little symptom here and there of a runny nose or a little blurry eye just because they just sprayed everything, and it's becoming spring. That's the biggest thing. We're about to hit spring. They're going to be starting to spray everything. All the bugs that they want to spray and kill, all the pesticides and herbicides, it's going to be all in the air. And the more that your body is anti-inflammatory, you're going to be stronger during this season. Not only just the pollen, but all the spray. So you have the ability, and so do I, and we all do, to really take heed on this. And so the more your body is able to handle these toxins, and the more that you get them out of your life physically, emotionally, and biochemically, you're going to start seeing really, really great changes. Like, for example, with me, I have, since I really took heed on my own information, like Dr. Heal Thyself type of thing, and I've gotten to a place where the shoulder injuries that I've had for years, no longer there. The hip instability and the knee instabilities that I've had going on, no longer there. Healed, they're completely revamped, utilizing the technologies that we utilize here at my office, but also just mainly truly getting rid of the toxins. Like, it's not like I'm doing it for myself, doing anything physically, emotionally, or new, but I'm doing a heck of a lot from the nutritional standpoint new. Really noticing that getting rid of the agricultural poisons, the dairy, the gluten, the wheat, the corn, and the soy, and the hidden oils within our foods, so immensely important. And we just need to start doing that. So again, anybody that wants to start talking about what they're experiencing and what's going on, totally give us a call so we can all experience your success and all experience your questions for greater understanding.
Well, let's get this conversation going. The call number is 313-9443. Information exchange is what this is all about, isn't it, Doctor?
It really is. And I remember doing seminars a long time ago where you'd have this one person really not want to call or not want to get up and make a spectacle of themselves because they're like, well, no one's going to want to listen to me, or my information's not that important, or whatever. And then that person gets up on stage and starts going through the information that they're either success that they just had or the questions that they had. And when that person was done being on stage, being coached through whatever they were talking about, the whole entire room changed because there were so many people in that room that were experiencing the same thing. Remember, we're all collective, everybody. So if there's people dealing with sadness issues, well, it's going to reflect your sadness issues. If they're dealing with success, it's going to mirror the success that you have in your life. And so you then start seeing that more and more and more that we're really more connected than we ever have believed in the past to be. And knowing that this is a true statement, that how connected we truly are. And the more we start feeding on that energy of our collective ability to connect, our collective ability to love one another and support each other in growth and maturity. And that's the most important part. People say, well, I'm going to support you in this. Like, okay, well, supporting is one thing in an independent way. Supporting people in a codependent way, that's the one that people get stuck in. So if you're in a household where you're working on expanding your nutrition, physicality, emotional well-being, and you're living with codependent people that you've either made for yourself or that you're more like automatically just doing for them, like you can be the codependent. So it's really interesting, especially when, and being a codependent right now, or being the codependent or being the codepended, it's not the fact of that it's a bad thing. Right now, it's just recognizing when you do that, either way, and we do it subconsciously, you're technically either giving your power away or allowing other people to give their power to you. And that's a really important distinction to make, because when you start making these changes, one thing, let's say you're the one that provides the codependency. When you start letting go of all your constraints, the people that have been relying on you as their codependent are going to kind of start freaking out a little bit. They're going to be like, hey, what happened? Why aren't you saying, doing, or being like this for me? And then you might actually have the struggle in your own mind. It's like, well, should I keep on doing this? This feels really weird because technically I'd want to go save the world right now and make sure that they were okay and that nothing's bad's going to happen to them. But I'm over here taking an hour of the day for myself, but they really need me. So there's these struggles that we have, and those struggles are related to a lot of the addictions that we have. And these struggles, these addictions, it's not like the addiction of cigarettes or the addiction of alcohol or addiction of drugs or anything like that. It's the addiction of believing that you need it from the outside in order for you to get it in the inside because you don't think you have it within you to do it yourself. And that's a huge aspect of addiction. That's one big aspect of addiction. we can't even get into the full aspect of addiction just on an hour talk radio show, but you really want to look at addiction behaviors and how to let go. Phenomenal book is David Hawkins' book, Letting Go. A really great book of how to learn to work on the step process. Maybe not so much the 12-step, but actually a stepping process of consciousness as you learn to let go of the guilt, the shame, the worry, the fear, the anger, the resentment, the pride that you have. And then just then being able to step into a space of courage so that you can be neutral in the situation where you don't feel that you have to go one way or the other way. It's just like you can just be Switzerland for a second and allow yourself to just be present with what is going on. So there's a lot of things that can happen.
Doctor. Hold that thought. Stay tuned. We'll be right back, everybody. Ladies and gentlemen, J.R. Moore here. It's taken 3 years before I could offer the inter-shelter domes for sale. During those 3 years, several different governments and militaries were taking all their production. The inter-shelter dome homes may be just what you've been looking for to provide affordable, energy-efficient, permanent, and attractive housing. These dome homes are prefabricated units that can be assembled in a few hours by 2 men with a ladder and simple hand tools. Check out the photos of these dome homes built in the Arctic, on tropical beaches, in suburban areas, and in forests. All the details, many photographs, and the pricing of the dome homes are listed on the left-hand side of my homepage at thelibertyman.com. I think you'll find these homes are not only attractive, but they're energy efficient, and a bonus. You can disassemble them and reassemble them as many times as you feel you need to. Pretty great, huh? Something that's very, very unique. Check them out at my website at thelibertyman.com. Okay, we are back. We're back here on Friday, the 6th of April, visiting with Dr. Phil Myers, my doctor. When I'm training to compete in the 100-meter dash, he's my coach. The rest of the year, he's my primary care physician, Dr. Phil Myers. So you want to get started with Dr. Myers? Call his office, set up that first private, no-charge consultation. That office number is area code 314-878-6868. Let's continue, Doctor.
So yeah, it's this whole transition phase is really an important thing for everybody, and that's why. This year I've been working on getting my ebook out. So within the next, I'd say within the month, we should have it done. We have gone through a couple drafts of it right now. We're fine-tuning the pieces and the parts to get it all down. It's going to be a free ebook that is provided on my website by going to the website and signing up for the newsletter system now. You'll be on that email list, so as soon as it's done, you'll be on the list and you'll go right out to you. So if you're wanting to make sure that you're one of the first people to get the ebook once it's done, make sure you go to PhiWholeness, PhiWholeness.com. Go to PhiWholeness.com, or if you are Facebook or Instagram at PhiWholeness, you can get the links to the site as well. But then go to the site and sign up your email on for our newsletter feed, and you'll be the first to get the ebook, and then any and all information that's going to come from that information, knowledge of information, and so take you to the next place with all the workshops that we're going to do from that, the classes that are going to come from that are going to be more available to social media marketing, and so more internet-based. So people that can't make it here to St. Louis, you'll not only have the information, but have the coaching along with it. You either be in book, audio, or video form that you can then start reaping the benefits of all the different type of coaching to do. And if you want to go one-on-one, then you can always call me, and then we can go one-on-one and take you even further into the lessons and into the transformation for your own self. So that's what's going to be happening this next couple months.
Well, all this exciting stuff, and I want to encourage people to participate in this. And your practice and your focus has changed dramatically in the last. Okay, well, I'm talking. Nobody can hear me. I don't know what to do. Maybe call in on the telephone. Nobody can hear me. All right. Okay, I'm here. Hello. I'm here. Anybody hear me? I'm on here. Okay, we lost Dr. Phil, and I apologize, ladies and gentlemen. We're having unusual technical difficulties this morning, but we will proceed onward and upward. Bottom of the hour break coming up here shortly. Maybe we can get some of these technical issues squared away during the break. I don't know. We take it for granted when this equipment works perfectly, and it's maddening when it doesn't. That's the nature of the modern world, isn't it? Well, Dr. Phil, I've known a lot of doctors, many doctors, medical doctors, DOs, DCs during my life. Dr. Myers is one of the most brilliant young doctors I've ever met, and I've learned a lot. He's helped me a lot over the years. I've been his client, and he's helped a lot. I don't know how many hundreds of other people he's helped, many hundreds, and he will continue to do so. I mentioned his telephone number and a free consultation you get. I bring my own family members. My wife consults with Dr. Myers, my daughter, my grandson. We all consult with Dr. Myers, and it's simple to get started with him. Simply call his office, set up that first private no-charge consultation at 314-878-6868. Here's our bottom of the hour break. We'll be back.
You are tuned in to the Republic Broadcasting Network. Visit our website by going to republicbroadcasting.org.
Ladies and gentlemen, J.R. Moore here. We're continuing our energy cleaner promotion, which began August of 2016. In this promotion, you get to buy an energy cleaner, $70 off retail, and a mattress pad, 10% off retail. $200 of the purchase price of the energy cleaner goes to Republic Broadcasting. This is a great way to help get energy cleaners out to people who need them and have some financial issues to deal with. And, of course, a great way to support Republic Broadcasting. Here's what you do. Send in a postcard. My address is John Moore, P.O. Box 201, Davidsville, Missouri. We pick a postcard every 2 weeks. If your postcard is drawn, you get the chance to buy the energy cleaner, $70 off retail, and 10% off the mattress pads. Put your name and your address, your telephone number, and your email address on the postcard, and we wish you the best of luck. Thank you. Okay, we are back, ladies and gentlemen. We're back. J.R. Moore here on Friday, the 6th of April. My website is thelibertyman.com. That's thelibertyman.com. You'll find some health-related articles under my free download section. Some things that I have no doubt that will help you. We've got the cancer treating protocols advocated in G. Edward Griffin's book, World Without Cancer. That's a free download there, about 30 pages. The cancer treating protocols that actually do work. Also, the Artificially Sweetened Times, a compendium of dozens of articles about the harmful effects of the artificial sweeteners that people, human beings, should not consume. And, of course, also, something that will help you with your health is the energy cleaner. I sell energy cleaners. It's my home business, and we focus on pain mitigation. Could be arthritis pain, joint pain, back pain, doesn't matter. We focus on getting a great night's sleep. As my wife, Dr. Moore, says, when you sleep is when you heal. So you need an energy cleaner. I use mine every night. I do. I wake up pain-free in the morning after a great night's rest, ready to take on the activities of the day, and you can also. Only $285 shipping included. Keep in mind, I offer a 30-day money-back guarantee. That's what I do, from me to you personally, a 30-day money-back guarantee. I do take PayPal. PayPal is a lot of fun. PayPal is the most secure way to make any payment online. And if you need to spread those payments out, PayPal will let you spread out those payments over several months. MasterCard, Visa, checks can be sent to my address at thelibertyman.com, money orders as well. And I have a toll-free hour line 24 hours a day. Here it is, 800-592-9543. I say again, 800-592-9543. Take your questions, calls, and comments. We got a caller on hold. We got Pat in Texas. Good morning, Pat. Hello, Pat.
Hello.
Okay, Pat. You're on the air. Go ahead, Pat.
I heard you a while ago when you said nobody did. My husband discovered you on YouTube, but I'm talking about Nibiru, but I don't want to talk about that right now. But I believe you, and I know all about it, okay? But I just wanted to say that chiropractor is a good for back pain, and they also don't they prescribe 60% more natural healings, like supplements that no regular doctor does that, but don't they do that because people are in such pain nowadays, and probably due to hydrocodone, and they're taking it away. I said, well, what you need is manganese, and you can get it at a chiropractor's usually, right?
Right.
Okay.
Well, you're right. Chiropractors get 12 course hours of training in nutrition. Medical doctors get 3 course hours in nutrition in medical school. So chiropractors know a lot more about nutrition than medical doctors in general, Pat.
That's what we need, is people like that who know different things, and how to heal people with heat, electricity, and like a disc at a place that had damaged the nerves and things like that, right? You don't want to get cut.
That's right.
No.
No.
Okay.
No.
That's my commercial for you.
Pat, thank you.
No, I wanted to ask you a question.
Yes.
Are you there?
Go ahead.
Okay.
I'm here. Go ahead, Pat.
Okay. Your energy cleaner, I think that's a really good idea. I had a dream about it, but I haven't done it yet, but I'm going to do it. And then when I heard you talking about it, I said, this guy is answering, my dream, what my dream meant. And also Leon and his oils, too. Really.
Right.
So I've yet to get into these two things, but I'm glad that I'm getting up early enough to hear you, and that's the problem.
Well, good, Pat. I'm glad you are. Right.
Yeah, and I appreciate that, and I also would like to tell you that I like to hear your theme song because I still miss my brother. He's on the Vietnam Wall, and we had, I don't know how many people I tried to tell that March the 29th was Vietnam War Veterans Memorial Day, and not one person was interested. Isn't that sad?
Well, it is sad, Pat, but that's too bad. But they're coming up Memorial Day weekend. There'll be several thousand people going to Washington D.C. To remember the POWs. So that happens every year.
Well, I know, but we lost 58,000. They do not claim that we're POWs, but guess what? They were, because we got this POW study about an inch and a half thick of the Senate POW investigation back in the day in the 90s, and there were 5,000 of them seen walking around like in Russia and China concentration camps. So they sent home. My mother never believed I was my brother there, and they would not let us open the casket. They said it was a closed casket. He was burned, but they sent home rock. They sent home Vietnam bodies, Vietnamese bodies. They did everything to keep us from knowing what happened. Are you there?
They did. It was certainly a dark stain on American history and American military and what they did during Vietnam. You're absolutely right, Pat.
There's a book called The Sadness That Was Vietnam. I recommend people read. But the bad part about it for me is that I heard they were going to start families. You see, the POW flag is a family's memorial flag. I didn't know that. The POW, the black flag.
Yes.
They were going to start some organization.
What is it about the flag, Pat?
The POW flag, the black one with the bowed head in the center. I tried to fly one, and one of my crazy neighbors said, "You got an ISIS flag flying." I said, "No, you're just ignorant." And I flattened it up. Huh?
Oh, come on. In the state of Missouri, Missouri state law requires every state office to fly the POW flag in front of their office. So we see a lot of. Of course, I fly that flag at the American Legion, where I'm the commander. And your neighbor is just ignorant. That's all. I'm sad to hear that.
Oh well, I live in a very ignorant neighborhood, and I fit the description that your friend was talking about a while ago. So that was very good information. But I just my problem, my answer is you got to know God, because I had somebody who was codependent like that. She was driving me bazonkers and taking my money and everything, a relative, and I said, God, what does she need? And he said, more time. And I said, okay, I'll be more patient. But then the next thing I know, they were looking for her to put her in jail. After 3 years, she said, I won't be doing drugs anymore. When they got through with me, I will not ever go back. I won't go back.
All right.
So anyway, I know what he was talking about, and I think the caregivers are really hurting these days, and that there's not enough of caregivers, really. You know what I mean? So
I do, Pat. Okay.
Good talking to you.
Well, Pat, we appreciate the call. We appreciate the call. Thank you very much. Okay, the call number is 800-313-9443. My friend, my mentor, he was my employer for several years, Mr. Charles Shaw. He had been a POW, and he wrote a book about his experience. That book became the basis for the fabulously popular movie titled The Great Escape, where Steve McQueen played the role of what Mr. Charles Shaw did in real life, where he was captured and escaped 5 times from German POW camps in World War II. In my role as Mr. Shaw's trial assistant investigator, I spent a lot of time with Mr. Shaw, one-on-one, many hours. During a trial, we were together basically 10 hours a day when we were in trial together. And we could talk about many things, and we did talk about many things to do with living and life and politics. But the one thing we never could talk about was the POW issue. It was just too much, too his emotional attachment to it, my emotional attachment to it, was just too strong that we simply couldn't talk about it, except in the most cursory, lighthearted fashion. I was never a POW on one hand. On the other, I did, in fact, search for POWs when I was flying 57 combat missions over Vietnam, and I did get reports, intelligence reports, of our men being held captive in the Mekong Delta where I was, and since I was an intelligence analyst, I had access to the reports from the CIA, from military intelligence, from the 9th Infantry Division, and so forth, down there in the Mekong Delta. And I would schedule flights. I didn't tell the Army I was doing this, but I would schedule flights to drop leaflets over the POW sightings. I would do that. As a corporal, I was only a 20-year-old corporal when I was in Vietnam. I had the duty, the responsibility to tell the Air Force where they would fly 5 days a week. We had anywhere from 3 to 6 missions a day, 5 days a week, dropping leaflets and playing loudspeaker tapes. It was my job as a 20-year-old corporal to direct the U.S. Air Force where to do that. So I picked out the places where they were more likely to be American POWs. And when I flew those missions myself, I kept a sharp eye out. Once I was done kicking the leaflets out, I kept a sharp eye out for any signals that I could see. Mirror flashes, SOS on the ground, flag waving, T-shirt waving, whatever I could see. I was keeping a sharp eye out because I knew I was flying over POW sightings because I planned the missions. And that's the way it was. That's the way it was. What the U.S. military and the U.S. government did regarding American POWs in all wars has been a black stain on America. I think we've got the Senate report posted back on my website, U.S. Senate Subcommittee report on POWs, where they document with evidence that American POWs were left behind in communist prison camps at the end of World War I, World War II, Korea, and Vietnam, all with the expressed knowledge of every sitting president at that time, beginning with Woodrow Wilson, and moving forward. All the presidents knew, every one of them, knew that American POWs were left behind in communist prison camps. Are there still American POWs left behind in Vietnam? I don't know. But I do know that in 1996, there were South Korean prisoners who escaped from a North Korean prison camp in 1996. And that war had ended in 1952, I believe. So is it possible? I don't know. I don't know. But what we did to leave those men behind, and we did, in fact, leave American POWs behind in Southeast Asia. The evidence is clear. The evidence is convincing. And I would like to see the President Trump, it's probably not high on his agenda. I'd like to see him expose that travesty for what it is. I would like to see that exposed. Back in the 1980s, there were private attempts. Colonel Bo Greitz, I've met Colonel Greitz a couple of times. He and I have a number of mutual acquaintances in Special Forces. Colonel Greitz was putting together efforts, I think, 2 or 3 times. He personally went into Cambodia and Laos, attempting to locate and free American POWs without success. I would have volunteered in a heartbeat. I would have volunteered in a heartbeat to go along on those missions, but that did not happen. It's a shame. It's a crime, quite frankly. It is a crime to abandon American POWs to communist camps. And the Senate Subcommittee report, that's the real deal. So it's not somebody's fantasy made up in their garage or their basement. This is a United States Senate Subcommittee report on POWs. being left behind in communist prison camps at the end of World War I, World War II, Korea, and Vietnam. That's my reality. I don't know what yours is, but that's my reality. Pat opened this can of worms, and thank you, Pat, for doing so. I haven't talked about this publicly for a while. It's difficult for me to do too because of my own emotional attachment to it, but it does need to be talked about occasionally. The Operation Rolling Thunder there in Washington, D.C. will take place Memorial Day weekend. I never had the opportunity to be there. It's a collection of tens of thousands of people, several thousand men and women on motorcycles. I recall seeing recently, from one of the more recent events, a U.S. Marine in his dress blues standing at the position of attention, saluting the motorcycles as they went past continuously for, I think, 2 or 3 hours. It was a long period of time that this man stood there at the position of attention, saluting as the motorcycles went past. So it's part of who we are. And the men and women who are responsible for abandoning our POWs, they're still alive. Many of them are still active duty, I'm sure. They need to be brought to justice, quite frankly. They were committing crimes. They may have been following orders, but they were committing crimes. And whoever ordered that was committing crimes. Whoever ordered those men to be left behind were committing crimes. Whoever ordered the cover-ups of the POWs left behind, they were committing crimes. In my opinion, there should be an investigation. There should be subpoenas issued for testimony, and there should be arrest warrants issued for the men and women responsible for abandoning our men in Southeast Asia. That really does need to happen. I doubt that it will. It should happen, but I doubt that it will. Here's our break. Stay tuned. We'll be right back. Okay, we're back, ladies and gentlemen. We're back. J.R. Moore here on Friday, the 6th of April. During a break, I was attempting to locate that Senate subcommittee report. I'm not seeing it here offhand. There's a lot at my website, and I'm not seeing it. I'll have to talk to Tim Spencer and see if we still have that available. If not, I'll find it and get it posted. It's serious stuff. It's serious stuff. It's men, and I don't know about any women POWs being left behind, if there were or not. But these men, they and their families should expect the U.S. government to do everything it could to repatriate them. That's a reasonable expectation. That's what should happen. That's what men and women, Americans, believe is what happened, but it didn't. It didn't. And the Senate subcommittee report is the real deal. Jesse Helms was the chairman of that subcommittee, Senator Jesse Helms, and they did their homework. They brought in the witnesses, they brought in the evidence, and they published their report of what really happened, leaving behind American prisoners of war at the end of World War I in communist prison camps, at the end of World War II in communist prison camps, Korea, and Vietnam. How horrible, how horrific would it be to be abandoned by your country, to be in what amounts to a slave labor camp, working for your communist captors, having no hope of freedom, no hope of liberty, no hope of seeing the people that you love and that love you. How devastating would that be, knowing that you were abandoned by your government? How hopeless would that be? There's been some films that some do a better job than others of Hollywood versions of POWs Left Behind. I don't have those titles here in front of me. I recall one of them was the first VHS tape I purchased back when those things were becoming popular in the 1980s. And I still occasionally watch it every year or so. For me, it's personal. For me, it's very personal. I felt at the time, and I still feel that these men were part of my team, and I felt a personal responsibility to do whatever I could to locate these men that were in the POW camps there in Vietnam. One book that I do recommend is titled 5 Years to Freedom, written by Colonel Rowe, a Special Forces officer who was captured in the Mekong Delta and was in captivity for 5 years before he escaped. Colonel Rowe ended up back on active duty. He set up the Sears course at Survival, Evasion, Resistance, Escape course at Fort Bragg, which I volunteered for, but the Army didn't have money to send me there, unfortunately. He ended up being assassinated by communist assassins in the Philippines while on active duty in the Philippines. Colonel James Rowe. He was a true hero. To survive 5 years in the captivity with the Viet Cong in the Mekong Delta, one tough guy, I have to admit, one tough hombre to do that. That's it for the day. That's it for the week. Get your medical supplies, your energy cleaner, your essential oils now while you can. Your firearms ammunition. Never ever give up your guns. Have a fun, safe, productive weekend. God bless America.